Welcome to our Research Like a Pro with DNA Q&A question and answer series. And today we are going to explore how AI and deep research can help create a locality guide. So this whole idea of deep research is so exciting, and we're just going to take a look and see what it can do for us. I know a lot of us as genealogists are still a little bit leery and wondering if AI is really worth bothering with and if it can help us. And the great thing is that locality guides can seem a little daunting. They can seem like they take a lot of time. And I know different people have said, I spent 20 hours on my locality guide. And some of us just love digging into the history and finding the records. And others might think that's a little tedious. So, whichever camp you are in, it's fun to see how AI can help us. And in the last year, we've gone from having just some basic chats with the chatbots to this idea of deep research. And I am finding that AI is getting much, much better at doing what I want it to do, but we still have some caveats and we still need to use our brains. So we are going to do a comparison of four large language models. And I know there are other models out there, but these are the ones that we are going to talk about today. So I'm also going to tell you exactly what I pay for and what I don't pay for because I also know as genealogists, we subscribe to a lot of things and we want to know what can we use for free, what might be good to pay for. So I'll just remind everybody that you can always just subscribe for 1 month, try it out, and then cancel if you decide you don't really need the paid plan. So here are the models we're going to talk about. We're going to discuss ChatGPT. And when I had a paid plan and I paid for a few months for ChatGPT, I paid and so I was able to create my own custom GPT, which was titled Diana's Locality Guide. And yeah, very creative title there. But now that I have it created, I can use it, even though now I'm just on the free plan. So I'm not showing deep research from ChatGPT because I wanted to see what could be done with just the free plan there. Now, Claude 3.7 Sonnet has this idea of a project where you can upload multiple documents and then query the chatbot about those, have it use that text. And this is the one I currently pay for because I like the way Claude writes and I use it for a lot of my research projects, helping me with writing and analysis. And so for me, this one has been worth the money. But we'll see how good it can do with locality research. Now, Gemini Deep Research is pretty new, and just recently it came out that you can use it with the free plan. And I know there's probably a limit to how much I can do at a certain time, but I was able to do a lot of searches with deep research in working on my locality guide, which was fun. Perplexity Deep Research can also be used on the free plan, but you only get to have 3 searches and then you have to wait for the next day or a few hours. So there are limits. And people that have the paid plan on ChatGPT and their deep research also will run into limits. And the reason is that it takes a lot of money to run these large language models, and you just can't have unlimited use to them. It's just the way it is. So this is what we'll talk about, these four. And we are going to see how they do with the same prompt. I love to test AI with using the same prompt across the different models just to see what I get. It's always an interesting experiment and always very fun. So the first one I tried out was Gemini 2.0 Flash Deep Research. And I basically gave the same prompt. Here it is written out for you. You are an expert genealogist telling the AI who they are. I am researching Izzard County, Arkansas, and I'm interested in the history and records that pertain to this area before statehood. So, just a little background on why I'm doing this locality guide. This phase of my research project is going into territorial records before statehood. And so I'm really interested in solidifying my knowledge on boundary changes and record availability history, trying to figure out when my Weatherfords came to Arkansas. Supposedly they came from Tennessee, trying to see if there's something else that I can find that will help me in my research. So when I first queried Gemini with this prompt, it took a minute to think about it, and it actually created a research plan. So here it repeats my prompt, and then it starts giving some ideas. And it had several ideas here. Now, something I do want to point out, let me make this a little bit bigger, is that I told it to create a locality guide using applicable sections of the locality guide template. Because this is a custom GPT that I created, I gave it my template. So it already had specifics. It already knew I wanted to have history and geography and all the different record types. And so that is something, oh, excuse me, this is not the same thing. Oh, back up. I was thinking this was ChatGPT. Got ahead of myself here. So this one I just uploaded my locality guide template to it. So it had some knowledge. But this one did not have that until I uploaded it. But this is an important thing because I'm telling it what I want it to go look for. Otherwise, I don't know what it would find. It would probably pull something together, but I gave it some very specifics with my template. So what it did, it created that research plan, and then it thought for a good probably 10, 15 minutes as it went out and scoured the internet trying to bring together all of the pieces it could find as well, probably scouring its product, its knowledge. And then it came up with this first little paragraph. It has lots of paragraphs, but we're just going to look at this one. And you can see that I've highlighted here the different source numbers. So whenever it stated something, it would tell me where it was getting that information. And then when I clicked the little arrow, I could see the sources that it brought in. So I thought that these were some pretty good sources. It's bringing in some history, Arkansas history. This is one Arkansas state history for kids. Here's one from Britannica, an encyclopedia type reference. And here's one from Senate.gov for Arkansas. So those were pretty reputable sources. And this was very well written. Lots and lots of information. Now, this went on for several pages, I would say. And one of the things, because this is Gemini and it is a Google product, it is connected to Google Docs. And so at the top, I saw here that I could export this to Docs and it would take everything that it had written and put it in a format for me in Google Docs, which is what I use for my locality guides anyway, which was really, really interesting. Now, the other thing, when I click this little down arrow here, I saw that it could also generate an audio overview. So I could have it generate that, and then I could listen to my locality guide and I could learn about this locality just as if it was perhaps a podcast or an audiobook. So that's really a neat feature as well. If you don't want to read, you want to listen to learn more about your research area. When I did export it, it came in just like a regular Google Doc. It set up headings, which I really like headings. And so this is basically a little table of contents over on the left side of your Google Doc. And it has the various headings in bold and brought everything in. So I was impressed. I thought that Gemini did a really nice job on that. I like the narrative, the sources, and the thorough research. Now, of course, I would want to really do some fact checking here, make sure that dates, places, things are really as they seem to be. But for the most part, this is a really good start. So now let's go to Perplexity. And Perplexity lets you have 3 searches for deep research for free. I don't know how many you can do in a month, but I know you can do 3 at a time on any given day. And so I gave it my exact same prompt. And then I noted that I wanted it to use deep research because you can choose just the basic or you can do the deep research. And then it went ahead and started working on the various bits of this locality guide. And I wanted to see what the sources were. So it gave me a few sources here. But then when I clicked the sources button, it let me get a little bit better list of the sources. And I always want to know what's being used here. And so I saw we've got Family Search, we've got some blogs from Legacy Tree and Genealogy Pants, we've got Arkansas Genealogy, and The thing that I love about having AI help do a locality guide is it will often go out and find some unique sources or things that maybe would be quite a few pages down in just a regular Google search. And so it can find some things that maybe just our searching on the web by ourselves would have overlooked or wouldn't have the patience to go find. And so I appreciated Perplexity, finding lots of different things. And then after each query, it would ask me if I wanted to know more about certain things. And so I just picked some of the things that it suggested. And it asked about if I wanted to know more about the primary industries during territorial time, settlement patterns, how those evolved in Izard County over time. I kind of given it the specific area for territorial time, and then to tell me more about the laws and statutes. So this was also nice because sometimes I can't think about what the next question should be. And I don't know that I would have thought to ask about the primary industries. I think often we just assume everybody farmed. But I found out there was mining, there was timber, there was eventually cotton. They began bringing in enslaved people and began having a cotton industry. So there were a lot of things going on there. And that did help me to understand why my ancestors were there and what they were doing. Now let's go to ChatGPT and my custom GPT. And so this was the title that I gave it, Diana's Genealogy Locality Guide Builder. And anybody can go find this. You would just go to ChatGPT and over on the side it says Explore. If you click that, it brings up a search bar and you can just put in Diana Elder and it should help you find the specific GPT. And this is the one that I already have the locality guide template that I've created attached there. It's already uploaded as project knowledge, and so you will already have access to that template. So if you're not familiar with the template, the first half is background information like history and geography, and the second half is record collections. And then that's where you can put links to all your records, census records, Bible records, military records, whatever fits. So in asking this custom GPT to tackle this, it gave me some background information because this is the first part of the guide. Um, and it always starts with that. And you can see here really small that it right away shows where this information came from. So it lists the sources there for these specific things. Well, I wanted to get the entire source list. So there's a button you can click. You just always click around on these large language models to see what else they will tell you. And it gave me the list of all the different sources that it did use. And I appreciated that it went beyond just like the Family Search Wiki because that's really good. And we use that as genealogists. That's often the first place we go. But I appreciated that it actually went out and found a record type on the Arkansas archive page about military bounty lands. And this was a manuscript collection. So that was a little bit deeper research than I'm used to. It found the Northeast Arkansas Regional Archives, and it found random acts of genealogical kindness. So I was pleased with all the different sites and repositories that this came up with. So, for example, here is that link that went straight to the archives and told me all about this sold military bounty lands that took place in 1825. Now, I could have gone to the state archives. I could have gone through the library catalog. I could have eventually reached this record, but it was really nice to have that found by AI and save me some time and effort. So, this was a really good find. Now, how about Claude? The first three that I have shown you actually have access to the internet and can go search. Claude does not. So why would I even bother with Claude? Well, something that I like with Claude is that you can set up projects, and that is a paid plan version. And I do like projects. I have a lot of projects set up. So on Claude, I have a locality guide project where I have my template already uploaded here. You can see it takes just a tiny bit of knowledge because it's just a template. So I could add a lot more stuff here. But I've done a lot of different guides using that template. So when I went ahead and did the query for Arkansas and for a territorial locality guide, it it looked like it was doing a fairly good job and doing some bullet points and getting this basic information. I found Claude does just fine with historical information because its training data, would have included that, and that hasn't changed in, a couple hundred years. They're going to still have the same dates. But what I did find were links were kind of a problem. So because it doesn't have the real-time access to the web, when I clicked on the link, sometimes they were completely wrong or not helpful or just went to a blank, this is not really a page. So I found that it did tend to hallucinate with links at times. So I would be very careful about using Claude for really for links. But it did seem to find some good published sources. So I was impressed by these and I thought, wow, I did not know Desmond Walls Allen. I've used her books a lot. I didn't know she had this book. Well, when I put that into Google and Amazon and, the places where we find books and the Family Search library catalog, I found that actually this is not a real book. This is kind of a made-up book that Claude made up, including, these were all made-up books. So that was disturbing. I replied, these book sources are not real. And Claude said, you're absolutely right. And I apologize for the error. I should not have fabricated specific book titles and authors that don't exist. Oh, well, I think it took, because Desmond has done a lot of work in Arkansas, I think it took real authors, but just gave them titles that they had not written. So that was misleading and inappropriate for genealogical research where accurate source citation is crucial. Let me provide a corrected response with legitimate, verifiable sources for territorial era Arkansas research. Okay, so the second try was actually good and it had real source citations. It actually showed, where they were published and when they were published. And when I spot checked these, they were accurate. And so here we see the actual book of colonial Arkansas right here by Arnold S. Morris. So that's just a little caveat to be careful of AI. And we want to spot check. We want to click around, see if things are really accurate, and, use our own brains. But we also want to just, reply back to it because when I told it it was wrong, it corrected things and then it actually did get things right. So AI is unpredictable. You never know what it's going to do. But it is very helpful because in a couple hours I had really created a very nice guide. So this is what I did. I consolidated everything into one Google Doc. So I copied all the details from all four. I just copied and pasted whatever the chats were, put them all in one Google Doc. And then I gave that Google Doc the consolidation into Claude and into that project and asked it to organize it because it does really good with language and organization and getting things in a good well all the AI does, but Claude does a good job, particularly with this type of a thing. And then it had my locality guide template already, and so I asked it to just put it all into that template and I wanted it to summarize and note any discrepancies in dates because doing some spot checking, I had noticed among the AI models, there was a little bit of discrepancy for like when the county was begun or the territory. And I was curious about that. So fine with my final locality guide was put together, what I did was I took the points that Claude created for me, and I like bullet points because in my guide I don't want to have a ton of narrative. I want to have it just kind of succinct. And so I took that and I copied and pasted it into my guide. And you can see here that in parentheses, I told it to tell me the conflicts in parentheses, that a conflicting date of January 1st, 1826 also appears in some sources. So now I could go look at other sources and try to decide exactly what is correct. And then you can see that we have some live links that it found. At first, it didn't give me the links, but I knew that Gemini had given me links, as had Perplexity and ChatGPT. So then I said, redo this and put in live links from the other AI models. And then it did. It used their links because it doesn't have good links itself. And then here's just the second page. And it did show some of the specific sources that it was using. So this was a fun exercise, and I really liked this because as I was going through and doing this, I kept thinking, well, which one am I going to choose for the timeline or the quick facts or the history? And so having them all put into one Google Doc and then letting AI take that and organize and fix it all up worked really well for me. All right, some tips and takeaways. Use the LLMs with deep research and web gathering to gather the information. Use those ones that we talked about today that are really good at actually getting the real sources and that will take a lot of time, deep research in trying to find your guide. And then, of course, do all the links. Take a look before you believe something and then get it all consolidated into one guide. And hopefully, this, instead of being maybe a 20-hour project to do a guide, you could knock that out in maybe 2 or 3 hours and then have more time to actually research. And of course, the real value of a locality guide is really understanding the locality and finding new places. So I would really recommend that as you are putting this together that you do take the time to read it and kind of get that into your brain as well, because that'll help you as you do your research planning for your project. So I hope this helped and that you can go try out using AI for your locality research. Thank you.